Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, where we'll explore adventure, spirituality, and empowerment through the outdoors and beyond. Join me, Karla Amador, as we focus on topics around the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also hear inspiring stories, get educated, and more. Let's get started. Are you ready to take a life-changing journey? Join me for a hike per week or 52 hikes within a year at 52hikechallenge.com. Gain the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also gain access to community, education, resources, and more. Plus, get 10% off on your sign up and first order with code RISE25. That's RISE25. See you on the trails. Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today for this very special episode. I have a wonderful friend and guest, Cris, with me today. Cris is known as the hiking guy. He has reviewed tons of trails in mainly Southern California, and he writes great reviews that are unbiased. He only recommends and talks about things that he truly believes in. He is a wonderful human being. I've actually worked with him on another show and podcast, and he has been someone that has really supported the work we do, and we appreciate him. He is wise and shares information about the outdoors that I think is really important and key for us all to stay safe outside, to stay knowledgeable, and to really understand the importance of planning. I am very grateful, Cris. Thank you for coming on and being here. We're going to talk about navigating GPS, how to stay found, how to not get lost. I think one of the things that stops people from going outside is the fear of getting lost.
Yeah.
And when I was doing some research for this series of the podcast is all about the hiking basics.
Yep.
And I came across one of your posts and I was like, ding, ding, we got to have you on. So thanks for jumping on with me.
Karla, thank you so much for what an incredible introduction. Hopefully I can live up to that, but I appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure. As we spoke about it earlier over the years, it's all, I think, for both of us about helping people get outside and feel confident and feel safe, because if you just watch like the local news, the outdoors, you're going into an area with like mountain lions and bears and watch out and you're going to get lost and everything. And really, we know it's not like that. And if you prepare a little bit, it becomes a haven where you can recharge and you walk in the woods and you walk out feeling better. And that's what it's about, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for actually talking and bringing that first point to today's podcast, which is there's the news and then there's the reality of it.
Yes.
And what happens, I think, a lot in general is the mind is going to usually create things. Fear is, there's an acronym for it, false evidence appearing real. Okay. So news and media is here to sell. It's sensationalism. I think a lot of times they need stories. And I feel like I'm with people who are like, why don't we have good news where it's all positive and happy? But the reality is, if you are prepared and if you take the steps, you can have amazing times outdoors, feel confident, and know that you can always get back to the trailhead with some key things and preparation. Actually, one of the ways I wanted to start off and ask you some questions is, one of the Recreate Responsibly guidelines is know before you go. And of course, leave no traces. First principle is plan ahead and prepare. What are your thoughts and words of wisdom on these two guidelines for people who are wanting to get started outdoors?
Yeah, I think preparing for a hike and just even spending 10, 15 minutes doing research before you go out there is probably the most valuable thing you can do to have a successful outcome, to stay safe out there. It's not about buying a piece of gear necessarily. It's really about knowing what you're getting into. For example, like if you just look at a map or you go to a trailhead and it says some destination is 4 miles, that could be 4 miles with 5,000 feet of climbing, or that could be 4 miles around a pond with birds chirping. You can't just go by the distance. You can't just show up somewhere and hike. And when I see people getting into trouble in the outdoors, it's easy to criticize, but you don't know what you don't know. So just spending a little while beforehand, understanding what you're getting into will pay off in droves once you're out on the trail. And I think that the specifics there are obviously distance. If you can't walk 4 miles on the sidewalks around your neighborhood, you probably can't walk 4 miles out in the trail. Feel confident about what you're doing. The other thing to look up is the elevation gain, right? It's like I just mentioned, like that might be 4 miles of uphill, and it might be treacherous uphill. It might not just be like a nice trail. It might be a loose scramble or a class 4 scramble where you're climbing up. So make sure you know what you're getting into. And I see this every year, and I get people asking me about Mount Whitney, the Mountaineers route. And if you're listening, not familiar with Mount Whitney, there's a regular trail that goes right to the top. It's long and it's hard, but if everything is working out, like the weather, you've acclimatized, you can just walk to the top essentially. But there's another route called the Mountaineers route that I think John Muir first did in late 1800s, was called there. But you're climbing up a field of talus. You're climbing up these rocks. Those rocks can slip down from somebody in front of you, crack your skull open. People fall on that trail all the time. It's a shorter trail. If you just looked at a map, it would look shorter. It would look easier. But if you don't do that research, you're potentially putting yourself in a situation where you might lose your life. So just doing a little research, and it's not just looking on an app like All Trails, because All Trails gives you a little bit. They give you a line that you can follow. But again, you don't know if it's a mountaineering route or if it's really steep. So look at some trip reports, look at blogs. All Trails has excellent trip reports where you can go in there and see what people are saying. But dig a little bit deeper so you know whether your hike is going to be a casual stroll through a flat forest trail, or if it's going to be climbing up the side of a huge piece of granite, something that you would need like a helmet and ropes and climbing gear for. There's a big difference, and just spending some time up front will solve that for you.
Wow. You've said so many things that I want to go back and touch on. Today, we're not going into map and details, but what you said about elevation, I think first off, when you're a beginner, you might not really understand that concept. So I talked about it in the last episode as how steep something is, learning, just doing some basic topographic map and what that looks like. So we're going to have a whole episode on that, and let's break it down, because I think that's one of the things that's difficult for people to understand in the beginning. Like you said, is what is the difference of trail that's flat versus something that is going to have that elevation gain? And there is a big difference. So going back to your first point, I said in the last episode, start walking in your own backyard.
Yep.
So key number one is, if you feel confident and comfortable walking 1 to 3 miles, try to stick to that on the trails.
Yep.
And then I said, please try to stick to under 500 feet of elevation gain when you're first starting out, because there is a big difference in that 500 to 2,000 feet in a 4-mile hike. And you're right. I think even taking it one step further, you talked about elements that, if you don't know what talus means, if you don't understand what mountaineering truly means, that is a key moment to stop and to take a step back to actually think through, do I really have the skills and the know-how to take that next step? Okay, so Mount Whitney, it's unfortunate. I know people who have passed away trying to attempt, and I think a big part of that is the ego that comes in for people. I'm going to say it, you're a badass. You're this awesome person because you did this thing. It's also very dangerous and it's life-threatening. And I think I want to speak to that first and just say to anyone who's listening and watching this, I know you're going to see pictures of people doing things that look really amazing and that it's something to aspire to. But before you even get to that point to think that you want to attempt something like this is where you need to really truly understand how serious this is.
Mm.
Mountaineering is a serious sport and it involves training and courses. And I'm all for it. If you want to go for it, do it, but do it safely. So I think PSA number one, take some mountaineering courses,
Yep.
go with a professional guide.
Yep.
Chris, now, are you at that level where you're guiding people and actually training them, or are you just sticking to mainly educating right now?
Before COVID, I was doing in-person guides. So I would take people out on the trail and do guides around Southern California here. When COVID happens, it was a state of emergency here in California, and I didn't have insurance to do that. So I stopped doing that. And then afterwards, I just decided that I'm just going to focus online because I think I can make more of an impact just doing it online as opposed to doing it in person. So I do have
Absolutely.
experience doing that. But yeah, and I'd echo what you say. Go to your local outdoors outfitter and take a mountaineering course. That's like that with a lot of different trails, not even Mount Whitney.
Yeah.
There's any mountain, there's probably a mountaineering route. That's a very technical thing. And there might be a trail that goes to the top, which is really just walking and making sure you have the level of fitness. And I'm spot on with you in terms of starting out. Start 1 to 3 miles, walk around. 500 feet of climbing is good. And when I categorize trails on my website, under 500 feet is what I categorize as easy. And then
Yeah.
generally 5 to maybe 2,500 feet of climbing will be medium. And then above that is hard or very hard. But
Yeah.
that's what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to close out, I want to share a personal story, and it's a brief one. It's just I've taken the training, I've taken the mountaineering training, I've taken rope classes, I've done rock climbing. And even with that, the times that I have attempted any sort of mountaineering activity, it has scared me because I know and I understand, and I've had people that have gone up without the proper training, equipment, and even know how. If you do not understand how to use an ice axe and how you can actually really injure yourself if you don't understand how to use it. And this is after I've taken the classes and done the practicing. You have to practice. You have to go out with someone who really understands what this entails. So please heed the advice because winter is coming right now. Maybe
Mhm.
there's a reason why you and I are sitting here today. Like, this is a serious thing. We don't want to hear about another person falling on Mount Baldy or slipping or not having crampons and sliding down. It's not worth it.
No,
It's not worth it.
100%. And what a lot of beginners probably don't know is that a hike that might in the summer be relatively harmless, like a hike up to Mount Whitney. It's not dangerous per se, as long as you stay on the trail, requires a level of fitness. But if you do that in the winter and you slip, if you slip in the summer, you fall on your butt. You slip in the winter, you're sliding 500,000 feet down, and people have died that way. So there's a very small margin of risk or margin of error in
Yeah.
the winter on the trail that might be fine in the summer. And if you don't, again, you don't know what you don't know, but if hopefully you're listening to this and now, so
Yeah, it definitely. Thank you for that. And don't forget that too, there's also risk of avalanche conditions.
mm,
And if you don't really understand what to look out for, that's a huge stop, take some time, do your due diligence, finding out what conditions cause avalanche. Like even that in itself is a course that I have some minor knowledge on that.
mm,
I've seen what the classes entail. And it's if you don't understand that,
yeah,
again, it's another moment to just say, take a pause. And if you really are serious about becoming that level of professional climber, then you need to take it seriously. It's not a joke. Thank you for bringing this up because I do think it's sad to say, but it feels like over the years, I have witnessed multiple people that I know go out in the winter, think it's going to be another harmless hike and they weren't carrying the proper gear, and then you hear a story of something terrible happening.
yeah. I know these stories too. And it's the way I look at it is hiking is supposed to be fun and everyone has a different sort of tolerance for risk. But for me, I don't go out in the snow. I don't do mountaineering. I just hike
Yeah.
where it's nice and it's safe, because for me, it's not about taking risks. It's about having a good time, maybe pushing myself a little physically, but not risking my life. If
Yeah,
a piece of ice breaks off, that's it. That's not worth it.
for sure. Thank you. To close that out, a reminder as well that crampons and microspikes are two totally different things.
Yeah.
And even wearing microspikes on ice, I have had slips on flat type surfaces and really had a bad fall on my hip, which brings me to what we're going to talk about today, which is these units and
Yeah.
why it's good to have this. But guess what? If you fall and you have an injury and your pack falls off or whatever, we need to have backups. We need
Yeah.
to think about what if, right? It's unfortunate, but it's an important piece to getting outside. And the reason why I asked you to be on, Cris, is because you have so much in-depth knowledge of GPS units and why we should carry them. And even now today with these iPhones, right? They have the ability to work through satellite now. Let's just jump in.
Yep.
We're hiking, we have an emergency, and the worst thing you can have happen is be alone outside and not have any means of getting found. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
open it up and let you start
Yeah.
speaking to it.
Yeah. So there's a few things before we dive in, just some terminology, right? We have satellite communicators, which are basically, if you think of them as like distress beacons over satellite. So your cell phone doesn't work somewhere, you can communicate over satellite. But to make it a little, put the wrinkle in there, like you mentioned, now phones have satellite communications as well. But the utility there is being able to communicate with the outside world where you can't call 911 on your normal cellular connection. And then there's a GPS device, which is a navigation device. And some of those have satellite communications two-way built into it. But a GPS that just has like maps and stuff on it, that is just a receiver. So this only will get GPS signals. So there's two different things. And we can talk about navigation because I know you want to talk about
Yeah.
that too. But I think for beginners, having some sort of form of satellite communicator is important. And like I just said, it's all about if something goes wrong, you're not expecting it. Even if you prepare, things can go wrong. You can twist an ankle. You can have a heart attack. A boulder can fall on your head. That things can happen that you're not prepared for, or that you're out of your control. Let me put it that way. In which case, it's nice to have some way to call for help. And
Yeah.
the neat thing as well is it's not just for you. Like you could be the most prepared person out there,
Yeah.
but you could run into somebody who's not prepared. And that's happened to me. I've never actually hit the SOS button for myself, but I have used it to communicate for other people. You're not charged for that. It's like a good Samaritan, just like calling 911. If you see a bank robbery or something, you're not responsible for it, but you can help somebody. And that's why I carry a satellite communicator. I actually have multiples backups, which I'll tell you in a second, but
Yeah.
a couple different flavors here to think about. The most common one that we see these days, it's called like a two-way satellite communicator. In the industry, it's called a SENS device, and SENS is a clever acronym for something, but it's like a Garmin InReach. And a Garmin InReach is a device that's rugged, built for the outdoors. You pay a subscription fee for it, just like you do on your cell phone. And it gives you a certain amount of communication back and forth. And you can use it for SOS, but you could also use it for non-emergency communications, right? So if I have a Garmin InReach, I have the convenience of being able to send a message to my wife saying, hey, I twisted my ankle and I'm not going to be home until midnight, but you don't have to call search and rescue. I'm okay. And there's a value in that, obviously, just being able to not have loved ones worry that you're gone or not have to mobilize a search and rescue effort if you're on your way back. So there's conveniences like that, but you can also hit SOS on those devices, like the Spot device that you just had. And if you hit SOS, it goes for Garmin, it goes to a thing called Garmin Response. And for the Spot and some other devices, it goes to a thing called Overwatch and Rescue. And those are dedicated teams that are just monitoring those SOS calls 24/7, worldwide coverage, multilingual support. So if you are on a sailboat in the middle of the ocean and you hit SOS and you say, my boat's sinking, they know what to do. They know who to call. If you're on top of Mount Whitney and you say, I'm having trouble breathing, I can't continue, I can't move, you hit SOS, they know how to handle that. And they will contact the appropriate search and rescue team to come and help you. Garmin doesn't actually perform the rescue. Spot doesn't perform the rescue. They just have that Rolodex. If I don't, people probably don't know what a Rolodex is anymore, but they have that contact list of who to call in case of an emergency, and then they can, handle it that way. So that's the value in carrying something like that. And like I said, you can save somebody else's life, and I've done that. I know other people who have, and that's where the value is. There is a cost, and you do have to pay for it. Now, there is another flavor of that called a PLB, personal locator beacon. And those are one-way devices. It's basically the same thing, a satellite communicator with a button on it. You hit that button, it sends your position, and it sends an SOS to search and rescue. It's different. It's not Garmin. It's actually in the United States. If you're off the coast or around the coast, it'll go to the Coast Guard. Inland, it'll go to an Air Force search and rescue dispatch team. I think they're somewhere in the Gulf in the Panhandle. And then they will contact the appropriate search and rescue team for you. But you don't have the ability to do two-way communications with a PLB. So the big advantage to a Garmin InReach is that you can hit the button. Let me just interject this because this is an important piece of advice. This was shared to me by the head of search and rescue at the LA County Sheriff's Department, which is a very busy, probably one of the most busy search and rescue departments in the country. When I asked him, when do I hit the SOS button? What could I tell people? He said, if you're unsure of a safe outcome, hit the SOS button. So it's a nice way to wrap that because it's relative to your experience level and your preparedness. For me, if I go out there and I roll an ankle and I can't get back in time, I can stay overnight and I can solve that problem on my own. I don't need a helicopter to come get me. If you're out there and you're brand new to hiking and you don't have the gear to stay out overnight, maybe you're on Mount Whitney and it's going to go down to 20s Fahrenheit overnight and that's a hypothermia risk, whatever it might be, then you hit the SOS button. But the nice thing, to get back to the original point about the Garmin InReach units, is that it's two-way communications. So let's just say you're not sure whether you should hit the SOS button or not. If you're in doubt, I think you should hit it. And maybe it's just, I'm having chest pains. Am I having a heart attack? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I wouldn't know. If I just start hiking and all of a sudden I get these sharp pains in my chest, was that indigestion? Is that a heart attack? Who knows? With the Garmin InReach or the two-way communicators, you can talk back and forth with the person on the other end, and you can work out with them whether it warrants sending a helicopter or sending a team on the ground to come and get you. So there's a huge advantage there. If you see a big smoke plume, I was out in Cleveland National Forest a couple of years ago, and a forest fire happened. And I saw a huge mushroom cloud of smoke, this apocalyptic thing happening. I knew where to go and what to do because those are my local trails. But if I didn't, I could maybe ping Garmin Response and say, hey, I see this smoke cloud to my north. I'm planning on hiking here. What should I do? And get some kind of feedback. So there's a huge advantage to having those two-way communicators. So phones have, depending on your model, they might have two-way messaging, like text messages. They may just have SOS. It depends. There's different systems, there's different phones, and we can talk about the details there later. But the phone is a good way to do that as well. And if you're a casual hiker, you can do what you would do with the Garmin InReach with your phone, but your phone is not a rugged device for the outdoors. So the phone's battery is not going to last as long. Just think if you're texting back and forth over satellite with search and rescue, coordinating something, your battery is going to drain down pretty quickly on a phone. You can smash the screen. There's different things that can happen. So if you hike all the time or you hike in conditions like where it's wet, it's snowy, you have gloves on, the InReach is going to be a much more reliable option. But if you're just a casual hiker and you're saying, I don't want to pay hundreds of dollars for a Garmin InReach, try to get a phone with satellite SOS, and then at least you have something.
Thank you for breaking it down and for sharing that. I think that's really important. And I do believe, just from my conversations, hands down, Garmin is a go-to that
Mm.
was gifted this, but also at this phase in my hiking journey, I feel very confident in my skills and in my discernment.
Yep.
Discernment, I think, is really, we can touch on, but just knowing my limits. And there are
Mhm.
things that I do to stay safe and stay found, not get lost. So this to me is like a backup. Like if you said I had an emergency, I can hit the button and someone at least will know where I am. Also, with everything you shared, we had a situation with a girlfriend of mine where similar fire one time, and thankfully we had reception. So we actually called the local forest rangers and we're like, "Hey, are we at any point in danger?" And they said, "No, you're good. It's way far from you." So you just never know. But that is one thing that could happen on the trail. Two, one of my best hiking buddies, she got bitten by a dog on the trail.
Oh, wow.
And we were supposed to be doing like a little section hike of the Colorado Trail, and we weren't sure, should we leave? And, at the end we decided to, but it really made me question, what do we do in this scenario? Because we don't need to hit the SOS button.
Yep.
And she does have a Garmin, but we ended up talking to our families afterwards. It made us realize we need to be able to share with our families. On my spot device, I can tell my family, like, hey, something's going on. I'm in
Mhm.
trouble, but I'm not like SOS trouble. So
Yep.
here's where I am. Can you get me help or what? So having those conversations and plans with your family. Hey, if I ever send you this message, I forget what it's called on here, but basically I need help is the
Mhm.
button on my spot device. And so I talked to my son about it. I'm like, hey, what would you do if you saw this I need help message? And I was quite impressed with the fact that he was like, I would call the cops first and figure
Yep.
out. And I was like, great, because I didn't even think about it until now.
Mhm.
So just even having that plan with your family, like if you received an alert, here's what the steps you should take. And so I think here's based off of the location, you can find out who the local forest or who manages the land, calling that local police department, and then they should be able to step it up accordingly. Because
Can
like you said, yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I should have said this before. One of the most important things you could do is leave a plan with your family, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I've seen them from sheriff's departments before. It's like this PDF with all this information. But if you're just going for a hike, if you're using all trails or find some blog or, something, just text a link to whoever you're with and say, "I should be back by 6. If you don't hear from me by 8, call the police." There's a misconception from television that you need to wait 48 hours or 24 hours to report a missing person. Absolutely not true. And time is a valuable commodity in a rescue. And the sooner that you can report somebody missing or not back or whatever it might be, the better their chances are of getting rescued or that problem getting resolved. And if let's say you forward something from All Trails or something like that, you know, they're going to know where you are on that trail. And apps like All Trails and even the Garmin InReach have basically like a live tracking feature. So you can share your position with your friends and family as you hike and I don't want to get too in the weeds with the tech here, but on All Trails, it works on cellular unless you have a T-Mobile Starlink data plan. I might have
Mm.
just got too far into the weeds there, but basically it's a way to allow your phone to do satellites that T-Mobile offers, but then you can
Nice.
get tracked in real time too. And if you're not back and you have that link, you can share that with search and rescue, and they should be able to just follow that line right to wherever you stopped. And that's huge. Having that type of information on a search and rescue is much different than saying, my husband went hiking somewhere in Yosemite and he was supposed to be back down at Curry Village at 5 and he's not. That's a whole other exercise than saying he started on the mist trail. He was going to go to Nevada Falls and be back by 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Two different things.
100% agree with that. Actually, that was one of my notes here. What do you think about the leaving the note under your car seat where you're hiking? Besides leaving
Yeah.
something for your family, I live in New Mexico and I text my boyfriend when I'm going to go do a hike.
Yeah.
Typically, if I'm doing something where I'm in the mountains or I'm going somewhere new that I've never been, I will send a link and just say, going for this hike, we'll text you when done, or
Yeah.
something along those lines. Because, like you said, if I get lost, even if the other day I did something that I actually think we should talk about. I was going to do one hike to Nambe. It's called Nambe Lake. But then on the way there was like, I kind of want to try something new. So I ended up doing a different trail, but it was at the same trailhead. At least I was still in that vicinity of where I was supposed to be hiking. And it is so different. I have a friend here who is in search and rescue, and there's been some people that they can't find, right? I think that for me, just talking to you, I think I'm going to try to be more mindful of that. If I say I'm going to go hike in one spot, I should probably stick to it.
Yeah.
Because if something would have happened on that other trail and he didn't know, he would have sent someone to look for me here. And I'm totally the opposite side of that hike.
Yeah.
So I do think that there is a lot of value to that and letting someone know. My son and my boyfriend are my backup people right now. That's who I let know, here's what I'm up to. Leave a note at home if you're not able to communicate through text. But most
Yep.
people have cell phones nowadays. So it takes 2 seconds to share a link.
Yeah. Yeah. No
You know?
excuse, I don't think, to not do that. And it ups your chances of being saved like dramatically. I might say exponentially. Just think here, I mean, you lived in Southern California. If
Yeah.
your friends knew you were going hiking somewhere in the LA area, that could be so many different places as opposed to I'm hiking to Ice House Saddle from Ice House, the trailhead there. So 2 different things that will change the equation. And it just takes, like you said, like a couple seconds to send that text out. And even if you're hiking too, if you do change plans, these days I find that I get cell reception in more and more places than ever. I was in your neck of the woods a couple of weeks ago. I did Guadalupe Peak, which is in Guadalupe Mountains, which is on the border of New Mexico. But I was surprised because I had cell reception in probably half of that hike.
Let's go back a little bit to backups with maps and stuff
Yep.
like that, because I think that, great, we have all these possibilities of how we stay found, how we know that, hey, if something happens, I have some backup. But let's just talk a little bit about some backup things that we can do to stay found. So I'll open it up to you and then I'll add
Yeah.
my 2 cents.
Yeah. So, well, maybe when we're talking about maps and staying found, it starts with you, right? We talked about preparation a little bit, but having a paper map when you go on a hike is important. And I know for new hikers, especially when you hear that, all of a sudden you're going to get images of a compass and it looks like something from 200 years ago where you're trying to figure things out. You don't need a compass to navigate with a paper map, but a real simple way that I recommend to people to do it, and you could do this electronically or with paper, is just to know the landmarks in a hike. So if I'm hiking, let's just do Mount Whitney for, why not? It is 3.5 miles, Lone Pine Lake. And then I have another few miles and I will be at Outpost Camp. And then I have another few miles and it'll be a trail camp. Knowing what those landmarks are and knowing the distances just roughly in your mind is going to help you know where you are. And it's trail junctions, right? It's like we're going to Mount Wilson, make a left on the Stuyvesant Trail at X amount of miles, whatever it might be. Just knowing those things and maybe even looking at a map and saying, okay, left here, another 2 miles, make a right. That is huge because then you're always focusing on what's going to be next. And you're mentally, subconsciously looking out for signs for some sort of a junction or landmark that you know is important to where you need to go. And if you combine that with electronic navigation, right? So let's say you have an app like All Trails or OnX, there's a bunch of different ones. Then you can maybe have that hike on your phone and there's now a line that you need to follow. And if you come to a junction and you look at your phone and you say, okay, the blue line is making a left. I know I need to make a left at this junction. If you combine that with just the research of looking at a map and saying, okay, get to this one, make the left, you're going to be 99% of the way there in terms of feeling confident in where you're going. And you can write down those things. It's called a cue sheet, right? Just taking a note card. I don't know if those are things anymore either, but a piece of paper and just writing down 2 miles left on this trail, 3 miles left on that. And having that, knowing what to expect is going to be helpful. But that's huge. And we talked a little bit about getting lost, or we mentioned it. I get lost, maybe not all the time, but I get lost still on hikes, even if I prepare. It happens. Sometimes there's like a side trail or something you're not sure what to do, or a cutoff. It's in the similar place to where a real turn is, and people have cut the trail off, and now you don't know, is this the trail? Is that the trail? Just having some sort of electronic navigation to look down on is super, super helpful. So I'd recommend doing that, investing in an app like OnX or All Trails. And there's a bunch, like I mentioned. And the other part of that is if you have your phone, putting it into airplane mode. When your phone's not in airplane mode, it's constantly looking for a cell connection, a tower. And if you're out of range of cell towers, it burns the battery down really quickly. So putting it into airplane mode will save your battery. And if you get an app, a lot of the apps will have something called offline maps, because if you don't have a connection, you can't load maps in. But these apps will be able to load the maps so that you can have your phone in airplane mode, be 50 miles or whatever away from a cellular tower, and still be able to see your dot on a map and say, okay, this is just some other random trail. This is not the trail I'm looking for, and continue. That's, I would just look at that as an investment that's necessary for hiking.
Yes, for sure.
And, that's a big part of feeling confident, doing the prep, doing that, sharing your location. And the phone, I think for most casual hikers, the phone works well. Always bring a backup battery in case your phone starts to die. You can plug it in, charge it up. Same thing if you need to do satellite communications on your phone. All of a sudden, you found somebody who's injured and they have a head injury, and now you're texting back and forth with 911 to diagnose whether this person has a concussion, broke their back, whatever it might be. Having that battery could be the difference between life and death in terms of figuring that stuff out. And if you hike in bad conditions, or if you hike all the time and you're maybe in the Pacific Northwest where it's like raining, snowing, you can get a dedicated GPS from Garmin that has all the maps preloaded and works with buttons, so you don't need a touchscreen. The touchscreen in the rain is not a good time if you guys haven't experienced that already, but it can go crazy when it gets wet and it can be difficult to use. But having a GPS with buttons, that's the top level of being prepared. And I don't always hike with a GPS that has all the maps on it, but if I'm going to Olympic National Park or somewhere where I know the weather might turn, I will bring that for sure. But if I'm just hiking on my trails here in Southern California, or it's raining right now actually, but it rarely rains, then I think a phone is fine. That was a lot of information. I'm sorry. Am I bombarding you?
Actually, I just keep thinking in my head, like, you bring up so many good points. I'm glad you talked about having the backup battery pack. Also, don't forget, this needs a battery. So every couple months, go in and just replace them. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So before a big trip, because I've done through hikes and I've done backpacking trips, if there's a trip that you're going on, just change the batteries out, right? Like I even have backup batteries in my backpacking gear. So don't forget to take care of that and make sure that you have everything charged up, as Cris said. Now, let's say you're going on some day hike in the wilderness and you realize, oh my gosh, my phone is not charged. With having the backup map, or I would say the priority is the map, you can still decide, okay, I'm going to turn my phone on low battery power mode, or I'll turn it off. And if I need something, I'll turn it back on. I'm not against that, but I would say if you're new and you are only using your phone to navigate, you don't know where you are, you haven't been there before, that would be a time where you use that discernment that I'm talking about to say, you know what? I know this was my intention and my plan, but is this safe? Is this the best choice? I like to wrap up and talk about life lessons from what we're doing and bringing it to life in general, and something that can help us. Discernment is that inner knowing and making the choices that are right for you in the long run, and really connecting with that inner voice and that inner self and inner knowing. And I do truly believe that we have an intelligence inside of us. We have an inner GPS unit that is trying to guide us at all times. And the more we try to learn that and to stay true to that, it will protect you. It will save you. And again, going back to even the beginning of this conversation, yes, I know we all want to be looked at awesome and like this inspiring person, but sometimes that involves going against what truly is right for ourselves. Take the time to connect with that truth that knowing. Like, I've gone to trails before and felt like I'm feeling scared right now. I don't know why I'm feeling scared, but something is scaring me right now. And I take a moment and I will sit back and I will just breathe for a few moments and I will literally sit with the earth and just ask, am I safe to move forward? And if that comes back and I hear a yes, I will continue on. And if I feel scared where I'm like, something's telling me to turn around, turn around. It's
Hmm.
okay. The mountain is going to be there. I think discernment is one of the greatest things and gifts that we have as human beings. And I think hiking and being outdoors connects us deeper to that part of ourselves. And so the content of today's podcast episode, I think truly that life lesson is learn yourself, know yourself. And the outdoors is just going to enhance and give you all these gifts that you can bring back to things outside of the trails.
Hmm.
Preparation, planning, it's something that we're going to take from going on a hike and we can apply that to our lives and in our goals, in the things we want to achieve, in what we want to accomplish in life. And I think, if anything, I wrote this quote down because I wanted to talk about this. In life, we're going to get lost sometimes. We're going to go off trail. But if we have a map, we're going to know how to get back to that point that we wanted to get to. We're going to
Hmm.
know where we need to turn around and, hey, you know what? I started going down this path that does not feel right or doesn't look good for me. I want to go here. So
Yep.
you have some way to get back. And the last thing is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yep.
Period.
Yep. 100%.
I could honestly, Chris, I feel like we could talk about everything and just there's so much wisdom and knowledge that you bring to the table. And you brought up so many wonderful points and even took it back a step. So it's like at a basic level of understanding. There is so much to learn when it comes to the outdoors. And I appreciate you for all you put out there, content for hikers. Where can they learn more about you and how can the community support you and your work?
Yeah,
And I want your closing thought.
sure. And I just want to echo what you just brought up is such a great thing. And I always tell people no hike is worth your life, right? People are conditioned to push through things. You think of something like Mount Whitney, people equate it with running a marathon. I can do it. I can push through. The difference with Mount Whitney is that there's not an aid station and an ambulance waiting to take you away. So you need to be conservative. You need to be conservative when it comes to your choices. It's not the place to take risks. It is the place to check in and just be very sober with yourself and say, do I feel good about continuing or is this something just feels off? I do that all the time. And I know it's frustrating. It can be frustrating if you get like a permit, right? You try to get a Mount Whitney permit. It's really hard to get. And you have this one day and there's thunderstorms at the top and you're hiking and you see the thunderstorms and you're like, this is my one day. I'm going to do this. You shouldn't. You should listen to your gut and you should play it safe because the mountains, like you said, it's not going anywhere. Always remember that. And I do that lots of times. I do that lots of
Yes.
times. If I don't feel confident where I am, I turn around and go back. My phone died and I didn't know where I was going. I would just turn around and go back. I wouldn't even think twice about it. So yes, that's a great point to wrap this up on. And yeah, if people want to learn more of this type of thing, I have gear reviews, skills guides on this navigating things like this. You can just go to hikingguy.com or just search for Hiking Guy on YouTube. And I have literally hundreds of guides, trail guides, gear guides, videos up there. You should find what you need. And if you don't see what you need, feel free to reach out and ask me to produce it. And I'd be happy to.
Chris, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your wisdom, and for being there for the hiking community. And I just want you to know that I appreciate you. I appreciate your work and all the energy you put into creating the content you do. And thank you for being on the Rise and Wander podcast. For anyone listening, I hope you'll share this really important message with people who you love, people who are new to the outdoors, your friends, and remind them like it's okay to turn around. It's okay to not know something. It's okay to want something and to have that vision for yourself and to also take care of yourself. So please share this information with anyone you think that could benefit from it. Make sure to check out Chris, his website, hikingguide.com, and make sure to check out the 52 Hike Challenge as well. And we hope to see you on the trails. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Karla.